Folks, welcome back to the show. You know, it seemed like the world was just getting crazier by the day. Then Trump got elected, and I gotta say, days turned into hours, and hours turned into minutes, and by the time I post this video, who knows what Donald's next crazy idea is gonna be. But this last idea, I gotta say, has hit close to home. Blanket tariffs on Canada and Mexico. I've done a couple videos on it, and I've been chatting with some operators of Canadian manufacturers, and I gotta tell you, they're taking it seriously. To recap, we're talking about the US wanting to impose a 25% tariff on all goods coming from their neighbors to the north and the south. And let me tell you, if you're Canadian, this is gut-wrenching for a variety of reasons. Now, what's Trump actually proposing here? What are the odds this actually happens? And what does it mean for Canada? You're probably thinking that we already went through this with NAFTA and the USMCA, and you wouldn't be wrong. But here's the thing. Trump's like that guy at the poker table who keeps raising the stakes even after he's already won the hand. He's not satisfied, he wants more. So what's he actually proposing? Well, other than 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico and an implication that it might be blanket coverage, we don't really know the specifics. Will it apply to raw materials? Will it apply to work in progress goods? Will it apply to services? What if you're a Canadian working for a company headquartered in the US? Will your employer now have to pay an extra 25% to keep you on staff? The answer to all those questions is we just don't know yet. So in a recent movie about the young Donald called The Apprentice, they give us insight into Donald's 3 rules for winning. Attack, 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 deny, 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 and never admit defeat. And when you think about it that way, suddenly his tariff threats with Canada and Mexico make perfect sense. He's always on the attack. It's why he grabs attention. He might be attacking Canada as part of a bigger negotiating plan, or there might not even be a plan. But he's always on the attack. Secondly, if the tariff talks or actual tariffs don't produce a successful outcome, it doesn't matter. He has no shame, and he will deny that he did any wrongdoing. And lastly, regardless of how it plays out, no outcome is a loss. He will spin it to have been a chess move in what turned out to be some other bigger successful plan. Everyone has a different truth in Trump's eyes, and Trump supporters care about vibes, not the receipts. So when it comes to outcomes, it's not the narrative that scares him. According to Trump, Canada is a bad trade partner, and he's got a laundry list of grievances. Dairy, lumber, telecoms, you name it. And look, he's not entirely wrong. Canada's got some protectionist policies that have been a thorn in the side of US trade for years. But why attack Canada now? Well, Trump's got this whole manifest destiny thing going on. He's out here talking about using economic force to make Canada the 51st state. Yeah, you heard that right. He wants to own all the land from the US through the Arctic to Greenland. He also wants the Panama Canal. Why? Because he wants to control every trade route through the Americas. At this point, he's basically a cartoon villain, except real. But hey, when you're leader of the world's largest economy and military, I guess you can afford to be a little unhinged. But what if Trump decides to just take Canada? Who would step in? China wants to invade Taiwan. Russia has already invaded Ukraine. Japan is on the brink of their monetary system collapsing. Germany is on the brink of their entire economy collapsing. And India doesn't meddle in other countries' affairs. If Trump decides to attack Canada, at this point, our best hope might be those alien drones over top of New Jersey. So the million-dollar question, is it going to happen? Goldman Sachs puts the odds at about 20%, but over on Polymarket, where people literally bet on this stuff, it's closer to 70%. So who's right? Well, the stock market's not overreacting just yet. But here's the thing. Trump's a wild card. One day he's threatening Mexico with tariffs, the next he's praising their new president, Claudia Sheinbaum. That said, he's shown he's not afraid to follow through. Remember the China trade war? That wasn't just talk. He slapped tariffs on $200 billion worth of Chinese goods, sending markets into a frenzy and forcing companies to rethink supply chains. So maybe this is another one of his negotiation moves. But I wouldn't bet against it. Not a chance. What does this mean for Canada? We're talking about $3.6 billion in goods crossing the border every day. That's not chump change. And 2.3 million Canadian jobs are tied to US exports. So if Trump slaps a 25% tariff on everything, it's going to hurt. Bad. The automotive sector represents around 170,000 good-paying jobs in Canada, mostly in Ontario. Although 1 or 2 automotive companies may strike deals with the government to build full cars here, that doesn't happen overnight. And what about the parts coming from Mexico? Are they now going to cost 25% in tariffs for traveling by rail? What about oil? Canada supplies approximately 60% of the United States crude oil imports, amounting to 4.4 million barrels per day. Without pipelines from east to west, it's going to be expensive to get this oil to new ports, making the economics questionable. Then we have lumber. British Columbia's forestry industry is already dealing with wildfires and beetle infestations. Right now, Canada supplies roughly 1/3 of the US's lumber consumption. Throw in a 25% tariff, and Canadian softwood might have less of a use case. But here's the kicker. Canada doesn't have a lot of leverage in this fight on a relative basis. The US economy is about 10 times the size of ours. As Ian Lee from Carleton University put it, we cannot get into a trade war. If we do, we're going to get slaughtered. Canada's economy is hooked on three things: housing speculation and bank lending, immigration, and government spending. First, let's talk about housing speculation and bank lending. Our 5 biggest companies in Canada are banks. Not innovators, not global leaders, just banks. Meanwhile, young Canadians are priced out of home ownership, household debt is skyrocketing, and the bubble looks like it's ready to burst. When it does, the fallout's going to be brutal. Secondly, we use immigration as a band-aid. When you can't afford a house, you can't start a family. So what did Canada do? Instead of fixing affordability, we just started bringing in more young people. But the government's open door policies prioritize volume over high-skilled talent. Sure, it boosts GDP, but it's draining public resources fast. Thirdly, we have a bloated government and we love deficit spending. Canada's public sector has been oversized for decades, but under Trudeau, it's exploded, up 40%. The CRA alone has 59,000 employees, while the IRS, which serves 10 times the population, only has 80,000. Okay, so let's wrap it up. After Donald Trump was elected, Justin Trudeau took to the stage at an Ottawa gala for Equal Voice and said the United States voted for a second time to not elect their first woman president. Women's rights and women's progress are under attack. Now, why did Justin need to say this? I'll tell you why. Because Trudeau doesn't care about being ethical, he cares about looking ethical. The right move as the Prime Minister of Canada is to take the high road. Even if you hate Trump's election, you have to be diplomatic. Instead, he saw it as an opportunity to boost his image. And it accomplished nothing. If anything, it put Canada in Trump's crosshairs. Remember Trump's first rule? Attack, attack, attack. Now we have a weak leader, a fragile economy reliant on a much larger one, and a resource-rich country with little military presence. If the US ever wanted to invade, we were never in a position to stop them. But if they wanted to cripple us economically, well, we've made that very easy for them. I digress. In the short term, Trump's tariffs are going to be a disaster for Canada. But in the long term, they could be a blessing in disguise. They could force Canada to diversify our economy, reduce our dependence on the US, and start thinking bigger. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be painful. Jobs will be lost, industries will suffer, and there's going to be a lot of uncertainty. But if Canada can weather the storm, it could come out stronger on the other side. So what's the takeaway? Don't panic, but don't sit back and do nothing either. This is a wake-up call. It's time for Canada to step up, roll up our sleeves, and start providing the rest of the world with real value. All right, everybody, that's all I got today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please let me know what you think in the comments section. Thanks for watching, everybody.